In this video, I will show you how to use the brand new Query Loop Builder, which we just released in Bricks 1.3.7. And this one has actually been our most popular feature request so far, so I'm really excited and really happy that you can now use this feature yourself in order to build more powerful sites with Bricks. Now, before we dive into the builder, I'm going to show you a few examples on how to set up your own custom loops. I want to spend a minute here inside of the Bricks Academy, this article, official Academy article about the query loop, which I also highly recommend you check out for a more comprehensive overview of this feature, and to talk a little bit about how the query loop works and why and when you would use this feature. So the query loop itself consists of two parts. Part number one is the query. That one you can create visually right inside of Bricks by setting different parameters, and then you get a response back from your database. This response, you can loop over the results, and inside of the loop item itself, you can render whatever content you want to show. So let's just say you request your posts, and inside of this loop item, you say you want to show your post title, maybe you want to show some meta information such as the publish date or the post author, the post excerpt, or the content, the featured image, any content really that you can retrieve from the database. Now this enables you to create much more powerful layouts than, for example, using the posts element or using the related posts element. And speaking about different types of data, there are three types that we can request right now with this query loop builder. We can request posts. So this is basically any registered post type. So if you want to request your posts, your pages, but also your custom post types, you can do this by using the data type posts. We can also request taxonomy terms. So for example, you want to show maybe your WooCommerce product categories on a page together with the category thumbnail. We can do this now using the query loop builder. I'm also going to show you this later as an example, but that's possible as well. We can also request a third type of data, which is our users data type. So if you want to list your blog authors, you can do this now. Maybe you have a membership site where you want to show the latest community members or users with a specific role. You can do this also using the query loop builder, or team members. If you have an About Us page and you want to show your team members, I'm also going to show you this in a minute inside of the builder. Now, I'm not going to go over all of the details here. There's a lot of information. Definitely check out this article to get a more in-depth overview of all the different controls and how they work. We're just going to briefly explore this here right now. So we can query our posts. This we already talked about. And there's an explanation here for all of the different query arguments, parameters that you can set for this query. An example here would be that you can also follow step by step. If you follow this guide, this shows you how to render your latest posts using the query loop builder. If you want to query your terms, you can do this as well. Again, an explanation here, which you can actually also find in the WordPress codex itself. Example here would be to render our product categories, which we already talked about a minute ago. Could look something like this, but of course you can render much more data. This is just a simple example just to get you, give you an idea what you can retrieve and render. And the third type of data that we can render are users. So we can query the database for our users. Maybe you want to render your blog authors. It can look something like that. Now also new in Bricks 1.3.7 is the pagination element. So whenever you render maybe your latest posts and you have 10 results per page and you have maybe 50 results in total, you want to add a pagination element. Now this you can place anywhere you want on your page, and then you can link it to wherever you have your query set on this page as well. I'm going to show you this in a minute too. It's going to make more sense. Now, besides turning a container into a loop, we can also loop inside of an accordion and a slider. So a good example maybe for an accordion loop would be a custom post type FAQs, the frequently asked questions. And we want to maybe have a custom post type for those. And if you turn your accordion into a loop, you could basically have your FAQs from your custom post type rendered inside of your Accordion element. For the slider loop, for example, you might have your latest post that you want to show in a slider, or you want to create a WooCommerce product slider. All of those things are now possible using the query loop builder. All right, I think that's everything that I wanted to say in terms of the introduction here. Let's just dive right into the builder and explore the query loop feature. Now, rather than creating this from scratch here, I just want to first show you what we can create here when we loop through our post. Again, a very basic example. You could do much more with this. I just want to have something that's easy to digest when you look at this feature for the first time. If you look at the canvas, you might actually think I'm using the posts element, but if you have a look at the structure, you can see we are not using the posts element here at all. What you will notice though, if you look at the right-hand side here, you see this little loop icon, and this is an indicator telling us that this container is actually a loop. So we're requesting data from the database, and then we're gonna render all of those elements inside of our loop here. So you can see on the left-hand side, we've got another container, which has a background image set. This is our featured image. On the right-hand side, we've got our post title and some post meta information. In that case, the post date and the author name, and then the excerpt here on the right-hand side as well. Below that, we've got our pagination element, which we linked to our query. That's why it also makes sense to give your query loop maybe a different name, so it's easier to locate when you use this kind of pagination element. So in total, I have 10 posts on this installation, and you can see I'm rendering 2. And that's why pagination shows me a total of 5 pages. Now let's just trying to create this ourselves here real quick, so you can see if we create something from scratch, how the whole process works. So I'm going to delete everything, and I'm starting here with my container. Because we're going to show all of our posts underneath each other, I actually don't need to have a wrapper around here. This can be my loop already, because we're going to render them here in this direction here. We're just going to put them vertical, stacked all of those loop results. So the first thing that we need to do is to actually enable our query loop. So if I flip the switch here, you will now see we have this little query control. And this is basically our gateway to the database, telling WordPress what sort of data do we want to request. I'm not going to change much here because I'm using the defaults pretty much, except I don't want to show my latest 10 posts. I want to show the latest 3. So I'm going to set this to 3. And now I can start adding some elements inside of my loop item here. And you will see what's going to happen in just a second. So in order to show my post title, which is what we had in our example before, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click here on post title. And you can see now it's going to render the latest 3 posts here. So now this is my repeater item here. And this is basically result number 2, and this is result number 3. Now we want to use a 2-column layout. So what I'm going to actually do, which I forgot in the beginning, I'm just going to add 2 containers in here. Okay. And I want to have the title on the right side. So I'm going to move it in this container. And I also want to make sure that those containers are next to each other. So I'm going to change this to horizontal. And now you can already see I'm having this 2-column layout for my query, and I can proceed from here. Now let's go here in our container and add our basic text. So I'm going to use this to retrieve some dynamic data from the database. I think we used the post date, so I'm going to remove this here. And then I'm going to select dynamic data. I want to show the date. Let's call this one date. What was the other one? Author, right? Author name. Where are you? Author name. All right, and you can already see here everything is being rendered properly. On the left-hand side, we wanted to add our featured image as a background image. So I'm going to select this container. And then I'm going to set my background to featured image. I also want to make sure it has a specific height, so I'm going to set this to 240. Okay, that looks good. I want to change my spacing. I want to add margin bottoms, have some space between the different results. Again, I'm here right now. This is my loop item. So this is result number 1, result number 2, result number 3. And the container on the right, actually I want to give it some padding to the right, to the left. I also want to make sure it's centered, so let's just change the alignment here, make it centered. And I also want to show the post excerpt. So again, I can use the excerpt element itself. That would work. Renders the excerpt, or you can use the basic text element and then set your excerpt there using dynamic data. Okay, the basic text, let's make some changes here, make it a bit more pretty. No. Give it some spacing at the top. Oops. Spacing at the bottom. Then we want to add box shadow around our loop item here. So go to box shadow. Something like that should work. Almost a bit too much. Okay, that's my item here. Maybe I want to reduce the typography. And there you go. I'm showing now my latest 3 posts in this custom query loop that I've set up here by turning this container into a loop item. Then I told WordPress that I want to retrieve the latest 3 posts. And yeah, that's my item right here. If I want to add a pagination, what I can do, I just go to pagination. I have my element here. And then I'm going to tell it which query I want to use for my pagination here. In my case, I haven't given this a proper name, so it's just going to be the container here. I would actually change this, and I would call this here container loop. Go to my pagination, and then request the container loop. Now it gives me this message here. Let me just maybe save and refresh. And you can see now it's showing me my latest posts together with the pagination itself. So this is just one example on how you can set up this query. Of course, you have many more parameters that you can set. If we just go here to query, you can make this as complex as you want it to be. You can also set the taxonomy query in here and the meta query arguments as well. That's possible. So yeah, you can really go in depth with this one here already in this initial release. All right, this is just an example for the latest posts. Let me show you another example that I created just to show you what's possible here. Basically, those are all examples that's also explained here inside of the Bricks Academy. As you can see here, this is a query loop for my product categories. This is my loop item. We can identify it by this little loop icon here. If I click on it, you can see, again, this is a container, like this little square. Here's the container icon. And if I go to query now, you can see instead of the posts, we actually selected the terms here. And then under taxonomies, we selected the product categories. Of course, you can also change this if you want to add multiple different taxonomies. You can do this here as well. In our example, very simple. We just want to show the product categories. And then inside of our loop item, I'm going to show an image and a heading. The image itself, you can see here, via dynamic data, we requested the product category image. The heading for the data, we're just gonna pull the term name. And then we're gonna link everything to the term archive URL. So when you click on the front end, you can click all of those links and it will bring you to the product category. Maybe let me just show you that quickly so you can see what's happening. Let me save. Go to the front end. This is how it looks like. Now if I click on this one, because we linked the container to the term archive URL, I click here, it now shows me my product archive for this category. Now another example, we already had a look at the data type posts and the terms. The third one, the type that we can query are our users. I'm doing this here also on a container. You can see here this little loop icon. I click here, you can see I'm querying the users and I'm querying, I want to basically show all users with the role of author. So in my case, I have those 3. If we have a look at the image, of course, I applied some different styling here, but I'm pulling in some data here from ACF actually. This is not the WordPress avatar. So of course you can use the dynamic data here from ACF, Metabox, Pods, CMB2, those kinds of data providers. So if I go down here to ACF, where is it? You can see here that I have those different kind of information. I'm pulling the avatar that I've set via a custom field in ACF. So that's where I'm getting my avatar from. And then the heading itself, it's pulling the user's display name. Of course, we can also show the first name or the last name. Anything is possible here. So let's just say I change this and I want to show the first name. It's going to render the first name only. Then again, I'm using a basic text element, or you could use the rich text element depending on what kind of formatting maybe you want to apply. And I'm pulling the user description, which is which you can set on the user profile page back in your WordPress admin dashboard. So that's a pretty easy example on how you can query your users. This is how you can create query loops for a container. Now, as we already learned back here in the Bricks Academy article, you can also create query loops for 2 other elements, which is the accordion and the slider. So let me first show you a simple example how you can turn an accordion into a query loop. Now again, simple setup. I have my accordion here. I called it Accordion Loop, but really you can see it already here again on this little indicator telling you that this is a loop. Now if we open up, we can see we only have one accordion item here, and this is because we are requesting data from the database. So this is just our loop item. All of the results will loop through whatever data I want to show in here. What did I do? Well, not much, to be honest. I did not set up a custom post type here. It's just an example. I'm just basically rendering the posts, but you could render any custom post type. If you have, for example, an FAQ post type, you can come here, say, okay, I want to show my posts, and then you could select, if you have this custom post type set up, you would select it here, and then I would say I want to show, in my case here, I want to show the latest 6 results. So that's what it's doing here. It's going to show me the latest 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then inside of the accordion loop item, I can now say what I want to show my title. Again, we are pulling dynamic data from the database. In my case here, the title of my FAQ, which is up here, subtitle. I'm just going to show the date. And then inside of the content, I'm showing the post excerpt. If we click here, you can see this is the excerpt. Of course, we can limit this using filter attributes as well, but that's how it looks by default. Simple example, but this is how you could set up a loop for your accordion. Now, the last example I want to show you is how you can create a query loop for your sliders. Here on this page, what did I do? I added a slider under slides. Looks pretty much the same as for the accordion as well. I enabled my query loop, And then here I've set this to show the latest 4 posts. So when you go through the navigation, it's going to show 4 slides in total. And inside the slide itself, what did I do here? For the title, I showed the post title. So this is the title of my posts up here. The content itself, all I'm saying here, I want to show the display name. So what's being rendered here by admin is basically coming from here. And at the bottom here, under background, I selected the featured image. So the featured image of the post is now the background of my slider. Again, you can use this for any post type. If you have WooCommerce installed and you want to create a product slider, you can set it up in exactly the same way. You would simply select post type products and then define all of your other parameters. If you want to maybe show products only from a specific category, that would be possible as well. All right, that's everything I wanted to say in terms of the query loop. I hope you enjoyed this new feature, and yeah, happy building as always.